Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Mike Sam. A year ago, I created a series of 4 tutorials about how to create a personal website with Bootstrap. Now, I didn't think those tutorials went very well, so I stopped doing them. But this time around, after a year, I think I have a lot of experience to be able to teach how to create a website really well, and I've been doing this teaching tutorial thing for a while now, so let's give it another shot. How to create a website. And before I get started with that, a quick intro. I think the best way to learn things like creating a website and programming and web programming in general is you learn by doing and you learn by experimenting. So we'll get started right away, but you only do something really because it's useful to you. So we'll create something like a personal website that you can be proud of. And we'll use something called Bootstrap. Now, to get started, Bootstrap at getbootstrap.com is a popular, really popular framework, not for experienced users, but for anyone getting started. It's really useful because it's a package that contains a lot of CSS styling that makes websites easy to boot up and looks pretty good. It won't look like 1990s website, but it'll look pretty good for a Bootstrap 2005 type of website. Now, the Twitter team created Bootstrap and open sourced it for the community so that people can make awesome stuff. So let's just get started and get the downloads. In this tutorial video in particular, we'll get the download files and just test around getting your index.html up, and we'll continue on from there. So you'll see a download Bootstrap. Click on it, get the download Bootstrap file, save it to your desktop, and it's a quick download. Now you'll also need a text editor, and a text editor that a lot of web developers use is Sublime Text. And so you can download Sublime Text at this website. I'll leave all the links in the description. You can get Sublime 3 or Sublime 2, but you can do that on your own, pause the video, and move on from there. Now, the first thing we want to do is create our base of operations. We'll create a folder that we'll call personal-website, and this is where we'll keep all the contents of our project. Inside personal-website, we want to create some folders. Now, when we talk about web programming in Bootstrap, I'm going to assume some things because HTML, CSS, the way it works is that HTML is the content of the website, CSS is the styling of that website, and that's how the two are connected. If you go to any website, let's just go to a Twitter website, and you right-click, and this is on Google Chrome, you can do something called inspect element, and this is a good way for experimenting for the first time. Now, when we talk web developing, it's a lot of experimentation, a lot about adjusting what you see on the web browser and seeing what works, what's best for the user experience, and so on. And now, I'm no web designer, and if you're any web designer, you know more than me, but I'm trying to teach the basics. When I'm developing on a website, the web console is extremely useful for getting just an overview of all the HTML. All the HTML is on the left side, and all the styling in CSS connected to whatever portion of the HTML you click will be displayed on the right side. So with this portion of the HTML, this body tag, I'll see all the CSS tied to that body tag on the right side. And what's useful here, and what's useful for experimentation in general, is that you can uncheck any of these styling. So for example, if I don't want this font, this Arial font, I can uncheck it. And I don't want this background color, I can uncheck it. On all of these, I can uncheck it. But let's just do something that you can actually see firsthand. So let's go to News. When you right-click and inspect element, it brings to that tag on the left side. So what we should do is we will uncheck text decoration. Now, that didn't do anything that we can see. Let's try to do outline, change the color. Just uncheck any of these until we see it. Okay, here. We can see something right here. When we uncheck the color for this light bluish color for the streams category bar tag, we can see that now it's dark blue. You'll see right now it's dark blue. Let's check it again. Now it's light blue, right? Now what's useful to this is that you can uncheck any CSS or styling that you might not know for sure what it looks like before and after, and it's like A/B testing. You can see what it is before and after, and you can get a sense of what looks better. Now, what's good about the web console is that you can even edit the values within here. So let's say if I want to change it to a different color, like pound 5FF. You can see this sea green type of color, and now I know that that looks horrible. I'm going to change it back. And it's just a good way for testing different CSS styling in general, instead of editing the file every single time within Sublime Text. Now these, if we refresh the page, everything goes back to normal. It's not permanent. It's just for quick testing and evaluating what looks good and what doesn't look good. Now, we'll get back to what you're looking for. We'll create 4 different folders. The first folder is for CSS. We'll keep all of our style and content within a CSS folder. Second folder, I like to keep a JS folder. Third folder, I like to keep an image folder that I call IMG. Fourth folder, I like to keep a docs folder because we're making a personal website and you might have some documents that you want to show. So what we have in our personal website are these 4 folders. And this is for organization because when you develop more and more on your personal website, even though you don't see it at the moment, organization is everything. It's just for future development. Maybe you look at it 5 months ago and you have no idea why you put all this random crap into your website. Well, so that does not happen, you make your website organized. Now we'll go to our Bootstrap zip file and we'll right click and extract all, and it'll extract it to our desktop. And inside the Bootstrap folder, you'll see something familiar. They also organize their files. Now, when we look at bootstrap.css and Bootstrap in general, you'll see a bunch of different styling and files within CSS file. Now, Bootstrap and bootstrap.min.css are the same file, but the difference is that min.css takes everything into one line. And why would that be useful, you might ask? Well, some people never adjust whatever's inside the bootstrap.min.css. They never have to look at it. There's all the documentation on getbootstrap.com, so they just look at the documentation and find out what tags, what identifiers are used within HTML to trigger the styling. So if we right click and we'll we'll choose another app and we'll find Sublime somewhere if I can find it. Sublime Text 3. And what we see over here is that in Bootstrap.css, everything is separated, organized within their corresponding tags. For example, in HTML, you always have an HTML tag. So this styling applies to HTML full tags. So if we go back to the folder and we open bootstrap.min.css, let's just open, we'll see that everything is just in one line. And that's because that people who are more experienced will use .min.css because they never have to adjust this file. So they just leave it in a minimum CSS file in one line. But in this case, since we're just starting, we'll just copy bootstrap.css, open your personal website folder, and drop it into your CSS folder. So it will be into your CSS folder of your personal website folder. Now JavaScript is, if you don't know what JavaScript is, it's really in a general sense, JavaScript is what is more closely related to a lot of programming aspects of web programming, where you can leave, you know, it's really associated in a general sense with all animations tied to a website. So all the animations you see within a website, on the client side, JavaScript deals with all of that. So what we will do is we'll also copy bootstrap.js. And what we can do with the bootstrap.js is that we'll drop it into our JS folder. And there are some things with bootstrap.js that allow you to do things like animations. Now lastly, there's a folder for fonts, but fonts are used for some of the icons that Bootstrap has. But I like to use something called Font Awesome, which has fantastic fonts. So we will get to fonts later. But for now, we have what we needed from that Bootstrap website. And this is what it looks like right now. CSS contains bootstrap.css, JS contains bootstrap.js. Now when we open up Sublime, Here's an old project that I've been working on. It's called Boston Hacks. If you go to bostonhacks.io, you'll see the website for a hackathon that we've been organizing. But I won't get into that. We'll use open folder. Open folder. And we'll find our folder for a personal website. Select that folder. Now we'll open up to a new project for Sublime. Now we want to create two new files. The first file, we'll file, save as, and we'll save it into personal website, website, and we'll save it as index.html. Here is where all the content of our website will go to. Now for our CSS, we'll do a new file, and again, save as, and we'll go into our CSS folder, and we'll save this as style.css. And this is to separate styling within two different CSS files because the HTML can be typed with multiple CSS files. And we'll do this for any custom CSS content that we want on our HTML. So we'll save style.css here. Now to get started, we'll do the tags of the index.html. And what I mean by tags and what I've been talking about this whole time is that HTML designates sections with these things called tags. And these tags have different labels on them. So here are the first general labels that really every CSS, every website typically has. So when we look at this, doc type HTML denotes that this website is an HTML page, and the contents after this denotation are all HTML contents. HTML is for the full contents of the website right here. And all the tags have two sections, two types. There's a header tag with just these less than, greater than, and then there are ending tags with less than, backslash, greater than. So whenever you see the backslash, this is denoting the end tag. So whatever's in between is inside HTML. Now we have a head tag, which is basically for all of the different metadata and all of the different contents. Well, not contents, but more like linked files within our head tag. So for example, metadata including things like title. And so we included a title tags, start and end. And for the body, it's the full contents of our website. Now, inside the title, we can do something like Microwave Sam's website. And what you'll see here is that on our tab for our website, it'll just say Microwave Sam's website. But that's like just to start. You leave the contents of all your belongings in between the header and end tag. Now, time to get to what you're looking for. We will connect the CSS, both CSS files to our HTML, and that's really what we're looking to do. So we'll do this snippet and rel equals style sheet. And what we'll do is we'll connect it to our CSS file. So we have two CSS files. One is just bootstrap.css, and the second file is style.css, which has nothing in that yet. So basically, we're relying completely on bootstrap.css currently. So what I mean by this snippet of line, when we link style sheets, when we link CSS to the HTML, we always denote it by a link, rel, and for these link lines, you don't need an ending tag. So all you do is rel, and the relationship is a style sheet. And we use href to associate the destination or where the style sheet is actually at. So remember that in the folder itself, I left index.html on the outside. So we go into the CSS folder and grab bootstrap.css, and we also grab style.css. And then finally, within the head, we usually add some metadata content. So I'll just copy it from the website that I've been working on. And this metadata is typically useful for things like search engine optimization, getting top results on Google. So these are just kind of the preliminary starter definitions for meta tags. And I like to organize my tabs by one tab within all the contents of every, like for example, in the head section, I like to tab once. But let me describe what these meta tags are. So for first of all, char set is UTF-8, and what UTF-8 is a type of coding that is universal enough to fulfill translation of things like mathematical symbols that aren't within, like conventionally within our English language. For example, like the symbol for pi, or like Chinese symbols that aren't within our English language. And that's just for an encoding that allows us to really translate within these mathematical symbols. Now, as for the viewport is useful for Bootstrap because it's tied within making the website mobile friendly. As you can see, we do the device-width initial-scale equals 1.0. I'll leave all of this stuff within my website or within GitHub, and I'll leave the links in the description. Now, for the description, this is typically what you'll do for a short description of what your website is. And as for the author, you'll leave the author. So here, we'll change this content. The contents will be changed to Microwave Sam's personal website. And as for the author, I'll write Microwave Sam. Now, this is a good start to what we have. We have our metadata contents that basically describe what our website is. We've linked it to the CSS, and we've given the website a title. Now, let's get to the body. The body is where action really happens. The body is where all the contents of a website actually are displayed. So to start off with, we'll use something called a div. Divs are just basic sections that you can apply to any sort of content, and it's just a general. You can imagine it as just something that denotes a section. Whatever content you can do, these are like different sections. So what we'll add is things called classes. Now, just to quickly go over, I'm kind of assuming some little knowledge within CSS. So what a class is basically it denotes these identifiers that style is also denoting. So let's just open our Bootstrap file. So I'm just going to open it up. And what we see here is we see these huge sections, right? HTML, body, and article, and so on. But what is useful for CSS, they have these things called classes. And classes are denoted by this thing called, well, these dots. So whenever you see a dot here, it's looking for, in our HTML file, class equals quote, quote. So if we have something called glyphicon-plus within our HTML file, the CSS will also look for the class equals, and then it'll find it, and will apply this styling to it. And that's basically how it works. And we have these things called IDs. IDs are basically, let me just find something really quick. Just doing a little search. Well, I don't think actually Bootstrap might have IDs, but basically, IDs are associated within the CSS file as these, instead of a dot, you'll see a pound symbol or hashtag symbol. And you'll see the name of the class afterward, and then you'll see whatever styling is. But that's basically the difference between class and ID. So within class, we'll use a class already available in Bootstrap. And when you are developing with Bootstrap, what's very useful is if you go to the CSS page, and go to this website that I'll also leave in the description, you'll see that they teach you how to use it. For example, if you want to do columns, like separate it into columns of 1 for all the contents of your web page, then they'll show you some of the code and aspects of it and what classes to apply to get that styling. And that's a really useful thing because it's a Bootstrap is just a pre-packaged list of CSS content that you can use on your website. So what we will use as one of the pre-packaged styling that Bootstrap has already given to us is we'll use something that is text-center. And typically what you'll do is Google is your friend when you're first starting web development. So you'll just say like, how do you text center on Bootstrap? And this is really how you learn. So either it's going to bring you to the Bootstrap website and you'll see something like, oh, wow, text-center. Or you'll see Stack Overflow question. So Google is your friend when you're first starting to learn web programming. And I'm trying to teach you how to get up to speed. Because you use these videos to get started, but when you actually learn, you learn by doing it yourself, being intuitive, and also being just creative in how you solve the problem. And all of these solutions, when you're doing web programming, a question appears in your head, and that question is, how do I do this? And then you search it on Google, or you already know the answer to that question, and then you just use it. Use what you learn, and you keep continually apply what you learn, and then you'll be a great web developer. Now, for Text Center, we'll just do microwave Sam's personal website, and we'll Control S. Now, the great thing about Sublime is that you can right-click and open in browser, and it opens in your default browser. So if we look over here, we see that Microwave Sam's personal website is centered. But if we right-click Inspect Element, we'll see the contents of the HTML on the left side and the contents of styling on the right side. And like I said in the beginning of the tutorial, you can always uncheck CSS, and you can see the changes reflected on the website. But also, like I said before, you can also change the contents of this. So, for example, I'll say text align right, and it's a good way for testing immediately what you're looking for. And we can also, of course, uncheck this. But like I said in the beginning of the video, if we refresh, everything is a reset. Now, that's how you kind of test your personal website. Now, let's get into using our style.css, and I think that will be good enough for this tutorial. When we add IDs, as I said before, are denoted by the hashtag symbol or the pound symbol. I always say hashtag because, it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those social media. Everyone is using hashtags. So as for IDs, let's just say, let's create an ID called Microwave Sam. And inside our style.css, and we can do this because it's hooked into both CSS files. So what we can do in style.css is we'll use a hashtag, and we'll use Microwave Sam, and all the CSS contents are always denoted within the bracket, curly braces, I should say. And within the curly braces, you can do some styling. For example, let's just say color, because color is just an easy thing to understand. We'll do... Okay, so when it comes to color, I'll show you another thing that I kind of use. For real web developers, they use these things where these sites that show complementing colors, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'll just show you something quick and easy that you can use, colorpicker.com, and you can just go within any of the colors, and you can extract the color tag with it. So if I right-click copy, and I'll use the hashtag within color uses this hashtag to denote that this is the type of 6-character color it is. So we'll save, and our index.html is good. It is applied with the ID equals Microwave Sam. So hashtags look for IDs, dots within Bootstrap or within any CSS look for class equals, and of course, you can always be like, for these big, for the general identifier itself, of course, you can put styling onto the whole body itself, but generally, you want to do it on IDs and classes. And generally, the difference between ID and class, and the main difference, is that when you use ID appropriately, you should use ID only for things that are unique, like unique IDs. But for classes, like let's say if I had 3 things that I wanted the color to be this, then I would use a dot instead. And that's kind of the general appropriate way of doing it. But I believe that you can do IDs to multiple locations, and it wouldn't make a difference. But if I'm talking to you about what's appropriate, then yeah, you would use dots for multiple things, but the hashtag for IDs for a single thing. So when we look at the website, the color is changed, and that's how you do it. And you can see on the right side in an inspect element, you can even change the color here. So for example, if I want to change black and see what it looks like, or Control Z, or actually, that is really cool. Google Chrome has a bunch of different colors already preloaded, and you can change it to different colors and see how it looks like. So that is a good start to a series of tutorials that I'm going to really try my best to teach you. Leave in the comments how to do things, but Google is your friend. When you are creating a website for the first time, for example, it's like, how do I use color in CSS? Someone has bound to answer it, and you can always go to the first couple of links and see how you do it. And then it stays in your mind, and then you keep on applying these tips and tricks, and that's how you learn how to program and be a programmer when it comes to web development. You experiment a lot, you look for changes on websites, and you just keep on adding to the overall knowledge you have. So thanks for watching, everyone. Please rate, comment, subscribe.